to your book, which came out in 2015 on seven myths of the Crusades. I'm wondering if you could kind of talk about maybe the beginnings of that book. I think I was in on some of the earliest conversations.
You were.
I can remember where I was.
Going back to UNF again, I was actually in a graduate seminar with Professor Michael Francis, who's now at the University of South Florida, I believe. And I read his book by Matthew Restall, Seven Myths of the Spanish Conquest. And I thought it was a brilliant little book, and it dispelled all these myths that I had believed about the Spanish conquest. And then I started thinking about my own area of interest, the Crusades, and how I'd been learning all this stuff in Riley Smith that was so at odds with popular assumptions about crusading. And so here I was, a humble MA graduate student at the University of North Florida, with a dream, as they say. But of course, no press would be interested in a graduate student at that level, no academic press. But I was encouraged. I think we had discussions, and to at least pursue it, in a rational way, and also encouraged to maybe consider speaking with a senior historian that might team up with me, one that had the reputation, the credibility, the career, all those things an academic publisher was looking for. And so I think it was 2008 at the St. Louis Crusades Conference at the University of St. Louis, Thomas Madden organized. I saw retired senior scholar Alfred J. Andrea, who's written a number of books, some of them on the Crusades, some of them on world history. He recently edited a 21-volume encyclopedia of world history, former president of the world history. I mean, great credentials. And he was sitting there eating breakfast, and I meekly approached him, and I sat down. I invited myself, and he looked a little suspicious at first, but he was kind, and I said, I've got an idea, and I want to run it by you. And so I gave him this whole spiel, and he patiently sat there listening while he was eating his breakfast, and he said, well, let's talk more about it. And then from there, we developed this dialogue, and he was kind enough, and with his scholarly credentials, any press would take a serious look, and so it was wonderful of Al, who's now my good friend, to have considered this in this way. But of course, he was in the middle of editing a 21-volume encyclopedia. I had a PhD to do. I was just beginning it, including a dissertation, and so it took a while before we finally. A number of major historians were intrigued by the project and wanted to sign on to it, and did at one point or another, but we took so long that many of them moved on to other projects, and so that was one of the things.
Well, you were editing some massive encyclopedia too, at least some portion of. I had another co-edited volume with another great historian, James Muldoon. It was the same while I was in graduate school, and it was the same approach. I was the grad student without the credentials, and so these wonderful senior historians would sign on. And it was a tremendous learning experience working under their tutelage, and so to Jim Muldoon and Al Andrea, I'll always be grateful, but those were both experiences that I had while in graduate school. And then later, my advisor, one of my best friends, Florin Curta from the University of Florida, he agreed to do a 3-volume encyclopedia on pivotal events in religious history, and so that was a major project that consumed my years immediately after I graduated with my doctorate in 2013. So I was finally free of that, and I immediately signed up to do another one all on my own. And I don't know if that was the best move, but we're plugging along, and we'll get there. So you've got a lot of experience working with a variety of publishers.
Yes, well, on some level I do, absolutely. Remember, I got my PhD in 2013, so I'm still very much a junior scholar, and so I still very much feel like I'm learning. I'm just learning, and I want to keep that approach. I don't ever want to think I actually know something, because then I'll probably be in trouble. But yeah. So.
And the Myths of the Crusade is published with Hackett, correct?
Hackett Publishing, and they're absolutely wonderful. Al and I had a lot to put together, and once we approached Hackett about it, Rick Todhunter, their senior editor there, who's absolutely wonderful, took real interest in the work, and he helped us shepherd it through to completion. He was very supportive, and I'm impressed with him. He treats his authors wonderfully. He liked the idea so much that we developed, with his encouragement, a series with Hackett Publishing, Myths of History. And we've recently published 2 additional books in the series, The 7 Myths of the Civil War, And
With the professor who teaches here at
with Dr. Wesley Moody, who teaches here at FSCJ. And then also, we published a book on the myths of Africa in world history, and we have books on Native Americans coming out, one on medieval Europe, but others as well under contract. And the goal is that these books are presented in a way that hopefully they'll be appealing to undergraduates for use in the classroom, that they'll be affordable. There are both hardbacks, which are expensive, but there's also these convenient paperbacks, which are only $19, and so they probably shouldn't cost students too many anxieties, And we've recruited some wonderful historians for these other books, which we can get to at some other time. But the series is coming along nicely, and we think it's going to be popular for use in a lot of history classrooms.
So just